it appears that it was just threatened. Furthermore, the individual linked to it is the same one who is currently being blamed for Malcolm's demise. She is not under suspicion. She wasn't present, but now the warning is directed at her. Additionally, Malcolm was attempting to reveal some unsettling aspects of the industry months prior to his tragically died. And now, following Malcolm's untimely death, the same individual he was attempting to expose is apparently threatening his wife directly. She is now withdrawing from everyone and canceling appearances, afraid she might become the next victim of the same person who killed Malcolm. Does this imply that she is concealing information from us? What was the coded message Malcolm was attempting to convey to us prior to his death? Let's dissect it. Nobody anticipated the turn of events. Additionally, what began as a terrible drowning is gradually degenerating into something far darker. Furthermore, no one now thinks it was really an accident. The storylines don't make sense, and the timeline is jumbled. Match and Malcolm's closest friends and family are abruptly quieting down after speaking out only a few days ago. At first, it appeared that the contradictory eyewitness accounts would be the biggest warning sign in this case. But that was nothing compared to what is currently occurring. As someone close to Malcolm's wife claims that she has been receiving threatening calls warning her to keep her distance from trolls. Keep your mouth shut or else. At this point, it no longer appears to be merely a tragedy, but rather a complete cover-up. Because why would be getting blackmailed into silence if this was just an innocent freak accident? The sum does not add up. Reportedly responsible is even more terrifying. This is not merely a random Simeone yelling with sorrow. This person was influential and powerful. They also seem to think Malcolm's wife is hiding something, possibly even receipts that could reveal them, or some connection or proof for whatever purpose, but perhaps for far more than what happened to Malcolm. Additionally, if they're prepared to go to this length to silence her, then the question isn't simply what she knows, but also why they're trying to hide. Who is this individual threatening? Then, Malcolm's wife hasn't spoken up about that aspect, and just that stillness speaks volumes. She was obviously shaken by whatever was said to her, and she hasn't dared to mention names. However, a source close to these circumstances, she has given some subliminal clues. Furthermore, the person behind such indications is not simply powerful if they are pointing in the direction that others believe they are. They are at the top of the food chain in Hollywood. And as you are all likely aware, normal names are the first to come up when fans begin pointing fingers in this way. You know, in those in-depth industry discussions, Jay-Z, Diddy, Beyonce, and even Clive Davis are discussed. Here's the twist, then. The individual threatening Malcolm's wife, according to the same insider, is not on their level. They are above them. It's also easy to understand why she would be afraid for her life if it were Clive, given how untouchable he already is. Because if they ever report to this person, then she could face the Hollywood apparatus. However, when you take a close look at everything, it begins to make sense because Malcolm's death circumstances seem not only strange, but really planned. It seemed like someone was working extra hard to control the public account of what happened. From the manner the tale started to how fast the narrative was set in stone, and it takes a very powerful person to exert that type of control on the media. But consider it. The contradictions, the early eyewitness silence, the hurried statements, and the red flags were there from the start. It seemed more like a housekeeping effort than a tragedy. Furthermore, the threats directed toward his it's beginning to appear, wife, that this was more than simply a lie. It might have involved deleting it entirely. This case had so many warning signs. What transpired at the scene, however, is one element that is beginning to garner a lot of attention. Because a certified medical professional who was present claimed that he raced toward confusion as he noticed the gathering crowd. CPR was already being administered by Red Cross responders. However, he tried to help after identifying himself, but they wouldn't let him. According to him, the CPR wasn't even performed correctly. Malcolm's body was removed by the ambulance before he could push any farther. Just that caused some to raise eyebrows. It gets even stranger, though. An autopsy was performed right away. Additionally, the autopsy results were available to the public a few hours after Malcolm's death was announced. You know, that doesn't happen if you know how these things often work, particularly when it comes to well-publicized deaths. Usually, autopsy reports take weeks to finish. But for whatever reason, this one was ready to travel within hours. And I'm not sure what else shouts controlled narrative more than that. Authorities in Costa Rica quickly declared it an accident, and the incident was resolved in less than a day. Fans, however, didn't buy it. For starters, they reported that Malcolm was swimming with his daughter when a rippee was pushed beneath. By the current version that was released first was that one. However, it was brief, terrible, and sufficiently clean to quell suspicions. However, everything stopped adding up almost immediately. The chronology seemed strange. Witnesses began arguing with one another. Additionally, the key specifics of who was present and what transpired during those last moments kept shifting. No, they responded, the daughter was never in the water. She was never in the back at all, according to a statement they made shortly after, which said they interviewed Malcolm's family, but they also weren't there at the time of the accident. The narrative then shifted once more. Malcolm and his daughter were swimming when all of a sudden they stopped. It is said that a stranger suddenly dove in to save him when he was swimming by himself. However, they now claim that this man was swimming with Malcolm the entire time and did not jump in to help him. The narrative then shifts once more, this time claiming that Malcolm was with a family friend. Here's the problem, though. Nobody is aware of this man's identity. No interview, no press release, no picture of him, and not even a verified name. Now, Malcolm's whole life is a mystery to someone who was allegedly present when he passed away. USA Today claims that a second adult male participant in the same incident as Warner allegedly on Sunday, July 20th, he was taken to a Costa Rican clinic in severe condition after an attempt to rescue him. However, the LA Times revealed something quite different a day later. Additionally, they reported that the man, who was only identified as a 29-year-old Nicaraguan, fully recovered and was discharged from the hospital. In between, there was no news on his condition, no explanation of his identity or his relationship to Malcolm. There was only a quick recovery, a silent discharge, and then complete radio silence. And it doesn't get any more strange than this. Following section, do you recall the physician we spoke of before? The one who attempted to intervene and assist Malcolm? It appears that he spoke with us weekly, and what he said prompted more inquiries. He claims that I was on vacation with my boyfriend at Playa Grande, roughly 200 meters away from the incident. The sea was choppy and there were few people on the beach. Red Cross personnel were already giving Malcolm cardiopulmonary resuscitation. When he arrived on the site, in the belief that he could intervene and assist, he promptly introduced himself as a U.S. certified trauma surgeon. However, they forbade him from getting close to Malcolm. They continued after that. Moments later, 2 other tourists ran over, the doctor said. They were both physicians. 3 medical personnel were set up on the shore, ready to help, but none of them were permitted to approach. Additionally, when 3 qualifying, why would you completely ignore doctors who are right in front of you? You want to help in a life or death situation. Fans are already beginning to make the connections. And the increasingly popular notion is that the first responders might have been involved from the start. Rumor has it that they refused to allow any of the doctors to assist for a straightforward reason.